Taemin had never felt so small despite his massive size as he carried his dying son through the cold metal halls of New Seoul Medical Station. The ancient dragon's crystalline scales scraped against the narrow corridor walls as he moved with desperate urgency. His son Hyun-woo lay limp in his massive claws, the young dragon's once bright blue scales now dull and flaking away like old paint. The medical station buzzed with activity as dozens of alien species went about their daily routines. Furry Velians scurried past carrying data tablets, while tall gray Zentarans discussed trade agreements in their clicking language. None of them paid attention to the dragon until he crashed through the emergency bay doors with a thunderous roar. Tuppa. Automatic doors shattered under Taemin's weight as he burst into the medical wing. His 15-meter frame filled the entire entrance as medical staff scattered in terror. Nurses dropped their equipment and ran for cover behind overturned gurneys. Security alarms blared throughout the station as emergency protocols activated. "Help my son!" Taemin roared in broken standard galactic language. His voice shook the walls and cracked several viewing windows. "Please help Hyun-woo." Dr. Bo-ram Kim had been reviewing patient files in her office when the alarms started. As the EDI, station's head of pediatric xenobiology, she had treated many strange alien children, but never a dragon. She grabbed her medical scanner and ran toward the emergency bay despite the evacuation orders. When Bo-ram entered the bay, she saw the massive dragon hunched over a much smaller form. The father's golden eyes were filled with a pain she recognized instantly. It was the same look she had seen in countless parents' faces when their children were dying. Species did not matter when it came to a parent's love. "Everyone stay back," Bo-ram called to the security team that had arrived with plasma weapons drawn. "This is a medical emergency." She approached the dragon slowly with her hands visible and her scanner ready. Taemin's massive head turned toward her, and she could see ancient wisdom mixed with desperate fear in his eyes. For a moment, neither moved. "I am Dr. Kim," she said in a calm voice. "I help sick children. May I look at your son?" Taemin studied the small human woman for a long moment. She barely reached his lowest claw and could easily be crushed by accident. Yet something in her steady gaze reminded him of the great healers from his homeworld. There was no fear in her eyes, only professional concern. "You are so small," Taemin rumbled. "How can you help when great dragon healers have failed?" Bo-ram activated her medical scanner and took preliminary readings of the young dragon. The data made her frown with concern. "Sometimes small hands can reach places large ones cannot." "What is wrong with Hyun-woo?" "Scale rot syndrome," Taemin said, his voice heavy with grief. "It has killed many dragon young across the galaxy. Our healers say nothing can be done. The crystal formations that power our healing have turned poison. My son will die within days." The scanner confirmed what Taemin had said. Bo-ram had read about scale rot syndrome in her xenobiology studies, but had never seen a case. It was considered universally fatal among dragons. The condition caused their natural healing crystals to malfunction, slowly poisoning them from within. "How long has he been sick?" Bo-ram asked, as she carefully examined Hyun-woo's dulled scales. 3 moon cycles, Taemin replied. "He was playing with other younglings when the first scales began to fall. We took him to every healer on Dracor Prime. They all said the same thing. The crystal sickness cannot be stopped." Bo-ram noticed something odd in her scanner readings. The dragon's cellular structure was more complex than she had expected. There were similarities to mammalian regenerative systems that shouldn't exist in a reptilian species. It was almost as if dragon and human biology shared common elements. "I need to run more tests," Bo-ram said. "Will you trust me to examine him properly?" Taemin looked around the medical bay. The human medical equipment looked primitive compared to dragon healing chambers. The scanners were crude, and the treatment beds far too small. Everything about this place seemed wrong for a proud dragon prince, yet his son was dying, and dragon pride meant nothing if Hyunwoo did not survive. Taemin had flown across 3-star systems to reach this station after hearing rumors that human doctors could work miracles. It was his last hope. "What do you need?" Taemin asked quietly. Bo-ram began organizing her medical team. Nurse Da-eun arrived with portable scanning equipment while technician Jun-ho wheeled in a specialized analysis station. Both humans moved carefully around the massive dragon, showing respect but no fear. "First, we need a proper examination room," Bo-ram explained. "Cargo Bay 3 is large enough for both of you. We can set up temporary medical equipment there." As they moved through the station corridors, curious aliens peered out from doorways and windows. Most had never seen a dragon up close and whispered among themselves about what was happening. Some recognized Taemin as nobility from the famous dragon houses of Dracor Prime. The cargo bay was quickly converted into a makeshift medical suite. Portable scanners hummed to life while diagnostic screens displayed complex readouts of dragon physiology. Bo-ram worked with practiced efficiency, her small hands moving over controls while her team prepared for detailed analysis. Hyunwoo lay still on a specially padded platform, his breathing shallow and irregular. The young dragon's eyes opened occasionally to look at his father before closing again in exhaustion. Each labored breath sent ripples of anguish through Taemin's massive frame. "The initial scans show severe crystal malformation," Bo-ram reported, as data filled her screens. "But there's something else here. Something the dragon healers might have missed." Taemin leaned closer, his great head hovering over the human doctor. "What do you see?" Bo-ram pointed to cellular diagrams on her screen. "Your son's regenerative pathways are damaged, but they're not completely destroyed. There might be a way to rebuild them using synthesis techniques. It's experimental and dangerous, but it could work." Hope flickered in Taemin's golden eyes for the first time in months. The small human doctor was seeing possibilities that the greatest dragon healers had missed. Perhaps there was wisdom in seeking help from other species after all. "What must we do?" Taemin asked, his voice filled with desperate determination. The next morning brought visitors that Taemin had hoped never to see again. 3 elder dragons materialized in the cargo bay through quantum communication portals, their massive forms shimmering with angry energy. Elder Wu Jin, the most ancient of the Dragon Council, looked down at the scene with disgust. "Taemin of the Golden House," Wu Jin's voice boomed through the bay. "What shame have you brought upon our people?" Taemin positioned himself protectively over his son, while Dr. Bo-ram continued her work at the diagnostic station. She had been analyzing dragon DNA for hours, comparing it to human genetic structures. Her findings were remarkable, but she needed more time. "I seek to save my son's life," Taemin replied firmly. "There is no shame in that," Elder Sujin, a female dragon with silver scales, stepped forward with her eyes blazing. "There is shame in begging help from inferior species. You disgrace every dragon who came before you." "These humans have found things our healers missed," Taemin said. "Dr. Kim believes she can help Hyunwoo." The third elder, Minwoo, laughed with bitter mockery. "A tiny mammal thinks she can succeed where dragon masters have failed for centuries. You have lost your mind along with your dignity." Bo-ram looked up from her work as the argument grew louder. The dragon elders were magnificent and terrifying, their scales reflecting light like precious gems. Yet their closed minds frustrated her. She had discovered something important about scale rot syndrome that dragon healers had never considered. "Excuse me," Bo-ram said politely, stepping forward despite the obvious danger. "May I explain what we have found?" The 3 elders turned, their massive heads toward the small human doctor. Elder Wu Jin's eyes narrowed as he studied her with ancient intelligence. "Speak quickly, small one, before we end this foolishness." Bo-ram activated her wall display and showed complex molecular diagrams. Scale rot syndrome isn't purely genetic, as your healers believe. It's triggered by a rare mineral deficiency that affects crystal formation in dragon scales. The crystals become toxic because they lack essential binding elements. Impossible, Elder Sujin snarled. Our healers have studied this curse for millennia. They would have found such a simple cause. Sometimes being too close to a problem makes it hard to see solutions, Boram replied calmly. Dragon healers work entirely with crystal energy and biological manipulation. They never considered using synthetic mineral supplements because dragons don't naturally need them. She brought up another screen, showing comparative biology charts. Humans and dragons share similar cellular regeneration pathways despite being completely different species. We both use calcium-based structures for strength and healing. The same mineral deficiency that causes brittle bones in humans is causing crystal malformation in dragons. Elder Minwu moved closer to the display, his massive form casting shadows over the human equipment. Even if this theory is correct, no dragon would accept treatment from mammal medicine. It would contaminate our pure bloodlines. Taemin felt anger rising in his chest as he looked at his dying son. Pure bloodlines mean nothing if our children die from preventable diseases. I would rather have a contaminated son than a dead one. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Dragon society had always prided itself on genetic purity and species superiority. The idea of accepting help from humans violated their most basic beliefs about their place in the galaxy. Dr. Boram watched the family drama unfold while continuing her research. Nurse Da-Yun and technician Jun Ho worked quietly nearby, preparing equipment for the experimental treatment. Both humans had learned to ignore the political arguments and focus on medical facts. The treatment would require combining human stem cell therapy with synthesized dragon crystal compounds, Boram explained to Taemin. We would need to rebuild Hyunwoo's cellular matrix using both technologies. Elder Wu Jin recoiled in horror. Human cells in a dragon body. Such abomination has never been attempted. You would create a monster. I would create a living son instead of a dead one, Taemin shot back. Your ancient wisdom offers nothing but acceptance of fate. These humans offer hope. The argument continued for hours as more dragons arrived through the quantum portals. News of Taemin's betrayal of dragon principles had spread throughout the noble houses. Some came to condemn him, while others watched with secret curiosity. Boram ignored the political chaos and focused on her work. The molecular analysis was complete, and the results were encouraging. Human stem cells could indeed be modified to work with dragon physiology. The treatment would be dangerous and unprecedented, but it had a real chance of success. Taemin, she called softly. I need to speak with you privately. The great dragon lowered his head to listen as Boram climbed onto a maintenance platform to reach his eye level. The elders continued their debates in the background, their voices echoing through the cargo bay. The treatment is ready, Boram whispered, but I must warn you of the risks. If it fails, Hyunwoo could die more quickly than the disease would kill him. If it succeeds, he will be forever changed. Part dragon and part something new. Taemin looked at his son's still form and felt his heart breaking. What are his chances? Without treatment, 0, Boram said honestly. The syndrome is too advanced. He has perhaps 2 days remaining. And with treatment, Boram considered the question carefully. 60% chance of survival, maybe 70 if everything goes perfectly, but he would be the first of his kind. A bridge between species, Taemin studied the small human doctor's face and saw only sincere concern for his son's welfare. No, political agenda or species pride influenced her judgment. She cared about Hyunwoo as a patient who needed help, nothing more or less. When can we begin? Taemin asked. Elder Wu Jin overheard the conversation and roared with fury. If you proceed with this abomination, The Dragon Council will exile you forever. You will be stripped of your house name, and your son will be declared dead to our people." Taemin straightened to his full height and faced the three elders with dignity intact. "Then I choose exile over watching my child die from your stubborn pride. Begin the treatment, Dr. Kim." The elders departed through their portals with promises of eternal shame and punishment. Other dragons remained to watch the proceedings with fascination and horror. Never before had one of their kind chosen alien help over dragon tradition. Boram began final preparations as her team assembled the experimental equipment. The next few hours would determine whether human medicine could achieve the impossible or whether a young dragon prince would become the first victim of interspecies medical cooperation. Taemin curled around his son's treatment platform, ready to face whatever consequences might come. For the first time in days, he felt something besides despair. The human doctor had given him what dragon healers could not provide: hope. The treatment chamber had been specially constructed in Cargo Bay 5, the largest space available on New Seoul Medical Station. Dr. Boram Kim stood before a wall of monitoring equipment while her team made final preparations. The experimental procedure would push both human and dragon medical knowledge beyond any previous limits. Hyun Woo lay unconscious on a specially designed platform that could accommodate his dragon physiology while allowing access to human medical equipment. Crystalline formations along his spine glowed weakly, their light flickering like dying stars. His breathing had become even more labored during the night. Taemin watched every movement as the medical team prepared their instruments. Nurse Da-yoon calibrated the stem cell synthesis equipment, while technician Junho monitored the dragon crystal compound generator. Both humans moved with practiced efficiency despite working with completely unfamiliar alien biology. "The procedure will take place in 3 stages, Boram explained to Taemin as she reviewed the treatment protocol. "First, we must stabilize Hyunwoo's existing crystal matrix to prevent further deterioration. Then we introduce the modified human stem cells to begin cellular regeneration. Finally, we rebuild his scale structure using synthesized dragon compounds." Representatives from 12 different species had arrived to observe the unprecedented procedure. Velian medical researchers took detailed notes, while Zentaran biologists recorded everything with quantum cameras. The medical bay had become a cross-species conference of the greatest minds in galactic medicine. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a human specialist from Earth Central Medical, had arrived on the fastest transport available. She brought advanced cellular manipulation, equipment that might prove crucial to the procedure's success. "The stem cell modification was successful," she reported to Boram. "We've managed to program human cells to interface with dragon crystal formations." Taemin felt both hope and terror as the treatment began. Boram made the first incision along Hyunwoo's spine with a laser scalpel, carefully exposing the infected crystal formations. The young dragon's scales were harder than titanium and required specialized cutting equipment. "Crystal matrix is completely corrupted," Boram announced as she examined the exposed formations. "The binding structures have collapsed and toxic compounds are spreading through his system. We're just in time." The first stage required removing the poisoned crystals while keeping Hyunwoo's natural healing processes active. Boram worked with microscopic precision, her hands steady despite the enormous pressure. One wrong move could sever vital neural pathways and kill the young dragon instantly. Taemin used his own life force to stabilize the crystal matrix around his son's organs, an ancient dragon technique that few non-dragons had ever witnessed. Golden energy flowed from the father to the son, creating a protective barrier around Hyunwoo's most vital systems. "Incredible," Dr. Tanaka whispered as she monitored the energy transfer. "The dragons can manipulate biological energy at the cellular level. This changes everything we know about healing." Hour after hour, Boram carefully extracted corrupted crystal formations, while Taemin maintained the protective energy field. Both father and doctor were pushed to their physical limits as the delicate work continued. Sweat ran down Boram's face as she worked with instruments barely adequate for dragon-scale surgery. The second stage began 12 hours into the procedure. Boram introduced the modified human stem cells directly into Hyunwoo's bloodstream, where they would travel to damaged tissue and begin regeneration. The cells had been programmed to recognize dragon biological markers and integrate with existing systems. Stem cell integration is beginning, Dayun reported from her monitoring station. Cellular regeneration has increased by 40% and rising. Tae-min felt his own strength failing as he continued channeling life force to his son. The massive dragon had not eaten or rested since arriving at the station, and maintaining the energy field was draining his reserves dangerously low. Yet he refused to stop while his son's life hung in the balance. Boram noticed Tae-min's condition and realized they were running out of time. We need to accelerate the crystal synthesis process. His father can't maintain the stabilization field much longer. Jun-ho activated the Dragon Crystal Compound Generator, a device built from theoretical specifications since no human had ever attempted to create artificial dragon crystals. The machine hummed with energy as it combined rare minerals with genetic templates taken from Hyunwoo's healthy tissue samples. The third stage was the most dangerous. Boram had to implant the synthesized crystals, while Hyunwoo's immune system was suppressed by the stem cell treatment. If his body rejected the artificial formations, the treatment would fail catastrophically. Crystal synthesis complete, Jun-ho announced. Artificial formations are stable and showing proper energy resonance. Boram began the delicate process of implanting the new crystals along Hyunwoo's spine. Each formation had to be positioned precisely to integrate with existing neural pathways. The slightest error could leave the young dragon paralyzed or cause his new healing system to malfunction. Tae-min's energy field flickered as his strength reached its limits. The massive dragon swayed on his feet, his golden scales losing their luster as he poured everything into keeping his son alive. Several observers moved forward to catch him if he collapsed. Almost finished, Boram called out as she placed the final crystal formation. Just a few more minutes. The implanted crystals began glowing with soft blue light as they connected to Hyunwoo's nervous system. The young dragon's breathing became steadier and his natural healing processes activated. For the first time in months, color began returning to his dulled scales. Tae-min finally released the energy field and collapsed to the deck with a thunderous crash. The exhausted dragon had given everything to save his son, pushing himself beyond the limits of dragon endurance. Medical alarms sounded as his vital signs went critical. "Get stabilizers on the father now," Boram ordered while continuing to monitor Hyunwoo's condition. "We're not losing anyone today." Da-eun and her team worked to stabilize Tae-min while the crystal formations in Hyunwoo's spine pulsed with increasing energy. The young dragon's eyes fluttered open for the first time in days, focusing on his father's unconscious form with confusion and concern. "Papa," Hyunwoo whispered, his voice weak but clear. The single word sent waves of excitement through the observation deck. The experimental treatment had succeeded beyond all expectations. A young dragon prince had been saved through the combined efforts of human medicine and dragon healing arts. Boram sank into a nearby chair as exhaustion finally caught up with her. 72 hours of continuous work had pushed her medical team to their limits, but they had achieved something that would be remembered throughout galactic history. The first stage of recovery would take weeks, but initial signs were extremely promising. Hyunwoo's new crystal formations were integrating perfectly with his modified cellular structure. He was becoming something unprecedented, a bridge between species that might change the future of interstellar medicine. 3 weeks after the experimental treatment, Hyunwoo's recovery had exceeded every medical prediction made by both human doctors and dragon healers. The young dragon's scales had regrown with an iridescent quality that shifted between deep blue and brilliant gold depending on the light. More remarkably, his new crystal formations generated energy at levels far beyond normal dragon capacity. Dr. Boram Kim documented each change with growing amazement as she conducted daily examinations in the expanded medical facility. The treatment had not only cured the scale rot syndrome, but had enhanced Hyunwoo's natural abilities in ways no one had anticipated. "Show me the communication test results again," Boram asked her assistant, Dr. Tanaka, as they reviewed the mornings. Data Tanaka activated the holographic display showing brain scan images. The neural pathways have restructured themselves completely. The hybrid cells are creating connections that don't exist in pure dragon or human physiology. Hyun-woo can now project thoughts directly to other species. This development had been discovered accidentally when Hyun-woo had asked Nurse Da-eun for water without speaking aloud. The startled nurse had heard his voice clearly in her mind, speaking perfect Korean despite the young dragon having never learned the language. Taemin had recovered from his ordeal and spent every day marveling at his son's transformation. The proud dragon father found himself learning as much as the human doctors about what Hyun-woo had become. The young dragon could now communicate telepathically with any intelligent being, regardless of species or language barriers. Word of the miraculous recovery had spread throughout the galaxy faster than quantum communications could carry official reports. Dragon nobles who had condemned Taemin's decision now arrived daily to witness the impossible. Some came in anger, others in curiosity, but all left with their understanding of the universe fundamentally changed. Elder Wu Jin materialized in the medical bay through a quantum portal, his ancient eyes studying Hyun-woo with a mixture of wonder and concern. The eldest member of the Dragon Council had ruled against interspecies cooperation for over 1,000 years, yet he could not deny the evidence before him. "The boy is magnificent," Wu Jin admitted reluctantly as he watched. Hyun-woo levitate medical equipment with his enhanced crystal energy, but he is no longer truly dragon. "What have we created?" "We have created hope," Taemin replied firmly. "My son lives when your ancient wisdom declared him dead. That is worth any price." Hyun-woo approached the elder dragon with none of the fear that pure dragons traditionally showed to council members. The young hybrid could sense the elder's thoughts and emotions, reading the complex mixture of pride, fear, and fascination that filled Wu Jin's ancient mind. Honored Elder. Hyun-woo spoke both aloud and telepathically, his voice carrying harmonics that resonated through crystal formations throughout the station. "I understand your concerns about what I have become, but I am still your descendant, still bound by dragon honor, still committed to our people's welfare." The telepathic communication allowed Wu Jin to sense the truth in Hyun-woo's words in a way that spoke volumes beyond mere speech. The elder dragon realized that the hybrid retained all the noble qualities of dragon heritage while gaining new abilities that could benefit their entire species. Dr. Boram watched the interaction with professional fascination and personal pride. The experimental treatment had succeeded beyond her wildest hopes, creating not just a cure for scale rot syndrome, but potentially opening new possibilities for interspecies cooperation. Representatives from the Galactic Medical Council arrived to study Hyun-woo's unique physiology and request permission to establish a permanent research facility. The young dragon's hybrid nature offered insights that could revolutionize medicine for dozens of species. "We would like to establish the Interspecies Medical Alliance with New Seoul Station as headquarters," announced Council Director Zara Okafor, a distinguished human physician from the outer colonies. Dr. Kim's breakthrough represents the most significant medical advancement in galactic history. The proposal generated intense debate among dragon leaders. Traditional isolationist policies had kept dragon medical knowledge secret for millennia. Sharing their healing arts with other species violated fundamental principles of dragon superiority. Yet Hyun-woo's existence proved that cooperation between species could achieve results impossible through isolation. The young dragon had become living evidence that different biological systems could enhance each other rather than creating weakness through contamination. Taemin found himself at the center of political discussions that would determine the future of dragon society. Conservative nobles demanded that he renounce the human treatment and accept exile to preserve traditional values. Progressive voices argued that Hyunwoo represented evolution rather than corruption. "I propose a test," Elder Sujin announced during a heated council session. "If this hybrid child can demonstrate abilities that benefit dragon society, we will reconsider our policies regarding interspecies cooperation." The test was arranged in the station's largest cargo bay, with representatives from major dragon houses observing through quantum links. Hyunwoo would demonstrate his enhanced abilities, while medical experts documented everything for official records. The young dragon began by levitating massive cargo containers with crystal energy far exceeding normal dragon strength. His hybrid physiology generated power levels that amazed even the most skeptical observers. Next, Hyunwoo demonstrated his telepathic abilities by simultaneously communicating with observers from 12 different species, translating complex medical concepts across language barriers that had previously required expensive translation equipment. The final test involved healing. Hyunwoo used his enhanced crystal formations to accelerate healing in a volunteer patient, a Valian trader who had suffered severe burns in an industrial accident. The hybrid dragon's touch caused the wounds to close within minutes rather than the weeks normally required. Elder Wu Jin spoke for the Dragon Council after witnessing the demonstrations. "We have seen abilities that surpass pure dragon heritage. This child represents possibilities we never imagined." The official recognition transformed Taemin from exile to pioneer, his choice to trust human medicine now viewed as visionary rather than treasonous. Dragon society began preparing for changes that would affect every aspect of their culture. Bo-Ram received the Crystal Order of Merit, becoming the first non-dragon to receive the highest honor in dragon society. The ceremony took place on Drakor Prime itself, with Hyunwoo serving as translator between species during the formal proceedings. "You saved more than my son's life," Taemin told Bo-Ram as they watched Hyunwoo play with other young dragons who showed no fear of his hybrid nature. "You saved our entire species from the blindness of pride." The medical station had become a pilgrimage site for beings from across the galaxy who sought to understand how cooperation between species could achieve miracles. Hyunwoo spent his days helping visitors understand the possibilities that existed when ancient wisdom combined with innovative thinking. What had begun as a father's desperate attempt to save his dying child had evolved into a transformation that would reshape galactic civilization, proving that the greatest strength lay not in species superiority, but in the courage to seek help from unexpected sources. 5 years had passed since the experimental treatment that saved Hyunwoo's life and changed the course of galactic civilization. The Interspecies Medical Alliance had grown from a desperate experiment into the most successful cooperative venture in recorded history, with New Seoul Station serving as its headquarters and symbol of hope. Dr. Bo-Ram Kim stood in her new office overlooking the expanded medical complex, watching through reinforced windows as beings from dozens of species worked, together in laboratories that had once seemed impossible to imagine. Dragon healers shared ancient crystal techniques with human doctors, while Velian researchers contributed their expertise in neural regeneration therapy. Hyunwoo had grown into a magnificent young dragon whose hybrid nature allowed him to serve as a living bridge between species. At 15 years old, he was already taller than most adult humans, and his iridescent scales reflected light in patterns that seemed to shift with his emotions. More importantly, his telepathic abilities had developed to allow him to facilitate understanding between beings who had been enemies for centuries. "The graduation ceremony is about to begin," Nurse Daun announced as she entered Bo-Ram's office. The veteran medical professional had been promoted to head of interspecies nursing education, training healers from across the galaxy in hybrid medical techniques. Bo-Ram smiled as she prepared to attend a ceremony that would have been unthinkable just 5 years earlier. Hyun-Woo was graduating from Seoul Medical University, becoming the first dragon to earn a degree in interspecies medicine. His thesis on crystal-enhanced cellular regeneration had already been accepted for publication in 12 different scientific journals. The graduation hall had been specially constructed to accommodate beings of various sizes, with viewing platforms for larger species and adjustable seating for smaller ones. Taemin occupied a place of honor alongside human dignitaries, his massive form draped in ceremonial robes that marked him as an ambassador of the Dragon Council. The transformation in Taemin himself had been as remarkable as his son's physical changes. The once proud dragon noble had become one of the galaxy's most effective advocates for interspecies cooperation, using his political connections and ancient wisdom to break down barriers that had existed for millennia. Fellow beings of the galaxy! Hyun-Woo began his graduation speech, his voice resonating through both auditory and telepathic channels to reach every member of the diverse audience. 5 years ago, I was dying from a disease that dragon healers had declared incurable for centuries. Today, I stand before you as proof that our greatest strength lies not in the superiority of any single species, but in our willingness to learn from each other. The audience included representatives from the major powers of the galaxy, many of whom had initially opposed the medical alliance as a threat to their own species' dominance. Yet the undeniable success of cooperative medicine had convinced even the most skeptical observers. Chancellor Yuki Sato of the Human Federation rose to present Hyun-Woo with his medical degree. This young dragon has shown us that the future belongs not to any single species, but to all of us working together. His graduation marks not just personal achievement, but the beginning of a new era in galactic civilization. After the ceremony, Bo-Ram joined Taemin and Hyun-Woo for a private celebration in the station's observation lounge. The vast windows showed the traffic of ships from dozens of worlds, all arriving to benefit from medical techniques that combine the best of every species' knowledge. I have news that will interest you both, Taemin announced as they watched a dragon transport dock alongside human and alien vessels. The Dragon Council has voted to share the location of the Crystal Gardens with the Medical Alliance. Bo-Ram nearly dropped her drink in amazement. The Crystal Gardens were legendary healing grounds that dragons had guarded jealously for over 10,000 years. No non-dragon had ever been permitted to enter the sacred sites. The Council believes that the garden's healing properties could benefit all sentient life, Taemin continued. Hyun-Woo will lead the first interspecies expedition to establish a research facility there. Hyun-Woo's scales shimmered with excitement and apprehension. The responsibility is enormous, he said telepathically, his thoughts carrying undertones of determination and hope. But if we can unlock the secrets of the Crystal Gardens, we might be able to cure diseases that have plagued every species in the galaxy. The expedition to the Crystal Gardens would represent the ultimate fulfillment of the alliance between human innovation and dragon wisdom. Ancient healing knowledge would combine with modern medical technology to create possibilities that neither species could achieve alone. Dr. Bo-Ram looked at the young dragon who had started as her patient and become her greatest triumph as a physician. Hyun-Woo embodied everything she had hoped to achieve in medicine. The healing of not just individual patients, but entire civilizations torn apart by prejudice and mistrust. There's something else, Hyun-Woo added, his telepathic voice carrying notes of mischief. The University of Dracor Prime has offered you a position as professor of interspecies medicine. You would be the first human to teach at a dragon institution. The offer represented the complete reversal of attitudes that had once condemned Taemin for seeking human help. Dragon society had evolved from isolation to embrace cooperation as the path to greater knowledge and prosperity. News reports from across the galaxy showed the impact of the Medical Alliance's work. Diseases that had been considered incurable were now treatable through hybrid techniques. Species that had been enemies for centuries were working together in research laboratories. Children from dozens of worlds were growing up in a universe where cooperation was valued over conquest. As evening approached, the celebration moved to Harmony Station, a neutral facility that had been established on the Moon, where the first successful interspecies medical conference had taken place. The station served as a symbol of what could be achieved when beings put aside their differences to work toward common goals. The dedication ceremony for the new research complex brought together leaders from every major civilization in the galaxy. Elder Wu Jin, now over 1,000 years old, delivered a speech that acknowledged the wisdom of changing ancient ways when circumstances demanded evolution. "We dragons believed that our isolation made us strong," the ancient elder admitted to the assembled dignitaries. "We have learned that true strength comes from the courage to seek help when our own knowledge fails us. This young dragon and the human doctor who saved him have taught us that the universe is vast enough for all species to contribute their gifts." Yan Wu stood between his father and Dr. Boram as the ceremony concluded, representing the bridge between species that had made everything possible. His unique nature had proven that differences could be sources of strength rather than division. The gathered leaders signed the Charter of Galactic Medical Cooperation, establishing principles that would guide interspecies healthcare for generations to come. The document enshrined the right of all sentient beings to receive the best possible medical care, regardless of their species or political affiliations. As fireworks lit up the artificial atmosphere of Harmony Station, Boram reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. A desperate father's plea for help had become a transformation that touched every corner of the galaxy. Taemin approached her as the celebration continued around them, his massive form moving with the graceful dignity that marked dragon nobility. "Dr. Kim," he said formally, then switched to the more personal tone he reserved for close friends. "Boram, my family owes you a debt that can never be repaid. Watching Hyun-woo grow into who he is today is payment enough," Boram replied, looking at the young dragon who was now surrounded by admirers from a dozen different species. "He represents the future we're all working toward. The future that had begun with a single act of compassion and courage had grown into a galaxy-wide movement that proved the greatest medicine of all was the willingness to help others, regardless of the differences that seemed to divide them.